So let's talk about 2004's Spider-Man 2, directed by Sam Raimi, written by Alvin Sargent, and this continues the Spider-Man trilogy after Spider-Man 1, continuing the story of Peter Parker trying to be Spider-Man while also living his life as a guy who is struggling. And of course, in this movie, he must face off against Doctor Octopus, who many have said is really the arch nemesis of the Golden Age Spider-Man. The original main Spider-Man antagonist is Doctor Octopus, making his cinematic debut in this movie, played by Alfred Molina. So, Spider-Man 2. This is a tricky one because I'm going to be honest with you guys. Some of you guys are not going to agree with me on this opinion, and that's fine. I like Spider-Man 2 more than Spider-Man 1 because I feel like the highs, I think, outweigh the highs of Spider-Man 1, but there are a lot of issues with this movie. There are some minor logic holes. I wouldn't say major, but some minor logic holes in this film that I thought about while watching it now that I kind of didn't think about when I was younger. Now, these logic holes can obviously, you can probably just chalk it up to Doc Ock is crazy. You can just say that. But he's also a genius. So I'm here watching the movie, picking out these things that I feel are, I don't know, maybe things they could have written around. I just feel like some of it was a bit sloppy. But the highs, I think, outweigh the ones in Spider-Man 1. And what am I talking about when I say the highs? Well, first of all, Alfred Molina's performance as Doctor Octopus, Otto Octavius, is phenomenal. Alfred Molina as an actor is tremendous. You know, this guy's got a history of great performances. He's a seasonally trained actor, and for him to come in and do Spider-Man, I mean, you got to remember, guys, before Spider-Man 2 and even Spider-Man 1, Willem Dafoe, who's also a very critically acclaimed actor, a lot of these superhero movies didn't have these legendary actors. Like nowadays, we've got MCU movies with these, thespian actors. You didn't see it that often. I would say Jack Nicholson actually probably started it with Batman 89. But here we have Alfred Molina, who is a tremendous performer, and he nails Otto Octavius because really what sells it is his eyes. You watch this movie, dude, this is a troubled man. This is a man who wants to do the right thing. It's sad because he's a very troubled character. He wants to do the right thing. He does believe in science for the people, but he starts to get driven mad by his tendrils, by his mechanical enhancements, and his thirst for accomplishing his goal, but at the same time putting the world in danger. So I think Doc Ock as a villain is great. Before we talk about something else, though, I want to discuss the trailer. The trailer to this movie, some have said, is the greatest superhero trailer of all time. I don't know about that, but it's up there. But I gotta also say this. Spider-Man 2 may be the best Spider-Man movie of all time, but it is not the best superhero movie of all time. I would probably put it in the top 10, maybe top 15, but there are several other films like Endgame, Infinity War, even movies like The Crow or Iron Man or Civil War that I would put above this one. Even Days of Futures Past. Maybe someday I'll do a tier list, something like that, but that being said, Spider-Man 2 is still beloved by so many people. So if you love this movie, I'm not knocking your movie. I love Spider-Man 2 as well. But there are issues here, and I have to be honest with you. The first thing I will talk about, though, before we move on to the issues is Peter Parker's character. I love that the movie portrayed him as being this guy who's kind of, he's not rich like Bruce Wayne. He doesn't have a full-time job like Clark Kent. And he's not being taken care of in a school for the gifted youngsters. This guy's got to work. He's got a job. And he's kind of a lovable loser. And I think Tobey Maguire really captured that more in this movie than even in the first one. He's a high school kid in the first one. Here, he's out of high school, going into college, and he's a lovable loser. And I think Tobey really nailed that in this movie. I think James Franco, who I didn't talk too much about before, I think is great as Harry in this film, especially at the end with that scene with Willem Dafoe that I guess was shot like on a happenstance. He was on set or something. He's great here. And the whole sequence where Spider-Man is captured, he's going to stab him, and then he's like, I need you to go. Like, the conflict in his face, man, it's too bad James Franco got canceled because I thought he was a great Harry Osborn. I thought he was, in my opinion. The issue I have with this movie, though, is the Mary Jane character. Like, I like the idea of Mary Jane and Peter. I like the idea of them, of Peter trying to balance his life and eventually giving up Spider Man, saying Spider Man is no more, which is taken from the comic book. That was taken from the comic book, If This Be My Destiny. He pretty much chose to stop being Spider Man because he was losing out on himself. He tried to be selfish and forgot the lessons that Uncle Ben taught him in the first movie, because sometimes, being a superhero can kind of get on your nerves. It can kind of ruin your social life. He can't really hang out with Mary Jane, but at the same time, Mary Jane's dating somebody else. He's dating J. Jonah Jameson's son. So Mary Jane in this movie is quadruple dick clutching. She's got Jonah, she's got Peter, she's got Spider-Man, she still has that crush on, doesn't know they're the same guy, and Harry's still in the wing. She doesn't really go for Harry, but I'll be honest with you guys, man, some of those Mary Jane scenes bothered me. Like early in the movie when they have that scene in the backyard or whatever, she knew exactly what she was doing. She was like trying to get this guy to confess his feelings for her because she wanted to go with him, but instead she's with other guys. Like I can understand her being best friends with Peter and they have a love for each other and she kind of secretly, really loves him, and wants to be with him. But at the same time, like she is dating other dudes. So what's Peter supposed to do? Just step in there and kick their ass as Spider-Man? Like, no, like if you really want Peter, why don't you make the effort to try and get Peter? She's over here playing games. Like, and you know what? Kirsten Dunst did a good job with her acting, but my God, it's so like, come on, like what is Mary Jane doing here being manipulative? Like again, I mentioned in the last review, she's not the wholesome MJ from the comics, and we have more to talk about in the next movie. Also, I'll be honest with you guys, even though the end of the movie where she leaves the wedding to go be with Peter, it's extremely, fairy tale movie-esque. It's a very fairy tale ending, right? She's gonna go be with Peter Parker. At the same time, when she finds out he's Spider-Man, at the same time, the ending kind of bothered me a little bit. It did kind of bug me because she's about to get married. She didn't even love this guy. Like, she didn't really love him, and then she runs off and leaves him at the altar for Peter. Like, it just sucks because he wasn't even a bad dude. Like, those stories are always sad, but I do understand the conflict and this kind of stuff does happen. But she really wanted Peter, and I do respect that. At the same time, it did kind of bug me because I kind of felt for the character. You know what I mean? I felt for it. And really, I think the emotional tone of the film really is Alfred Molina. The dude loses his wife, and when he loses his wife, he loses his damn mind. I mean, early in the film, they establish, and by the way, I watched Spider-Man 2.1, the one that has the extra scenes put in, which was way better. Earlier in the film, they established that how much he loves his wife, and they met at college and all that stuff, and he's a good man, he's a genuinely good man. Alfred Molina has a warmth to him, but man, he's a psychopath when he goes nuts. Some of the issues I had with his character, though, is I feel like he's a little bit too aggressive. Like, the scene where he throws the car into, like, the coffee shop or whatever, the restaurant, that was an awesome scene, but I'm like, dude, he doesn't know Peter Parker's Spider-Man. What if you killed him? If Peter's your only connection to Spider-Man, why are you being so aggressive? Throws him into the wall and whatnot. That would have killed a regular person. But he's over here flinging him. I mean, again, it's a comic book movie, so I'm not going to overthink that, but I'm thinking, dude, you got to chill out a little bit if you really want, to get information. But I will say, the two sequences that I loved, without question, in this movie that I think are the best of this whole trilogy was Spider-Man versus Doc Ock in the sky, or in the apartment thing where with Aunt May. Like, I love that entire sequence. He's trying to save her, and she's there, and she hits him in the face. Like, that was very much a Silver Age Spider-Man story. It really felt like that. It felt like a Silver Age moment right there. Spider-Man saving Aunt May, and then, he's back. And I also love when Jonah dressed up in the suit. That was awesome. But, and that's only in the 2.1 version, deleted scene. And then the fight on the train, I think, was absolutely fantastic. It's probably the best sequence in this trilogy. the camera work that Sam Raimi did, the choreography, this was a hell of a battle. They beat the crap out of each other, Doc Ock and Spider-Man did. And to me that was like I didn't really appreciate that sequence as much when I was younger and saw it for the first time as I do now. They really were aggressive. They were beating the crap out of each other, trying to kill each other. I mean, at one point, Harry tells Doc Ock to save Spider-Man, to bring him to him. And at one point, I'm thinking like, when he dangles his neck outside the train and the train's about to hit him, like, you're trying to kill this man. Like, these guys were super aggressive here, but the scene was great. Now, I will say this. One of the things that did bug me about this movie, and I don't know if it was ego or what, is that they constantly had Spider-Man taking his mask off. This bothered me even back when I first saw it. He takes his mask off way too often. Dude, people might be watching you. What happened to Secret Identity? And then now, when he's saving the train, with the spider webs, that was an epic scene. Like, there were people making jokes, like, in the Discord, like, Tom Holland Spider-Man's too much of a pussy to do that. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but that scene is incredibly epic. And then he's sitting there, right? And then he's got his mask off, and they're like, he's just a kid. And it's like, all those people on the subway just saw what Spider-Man looks like, and they're like, we promise we won't tell anybody. Get the fuck out. Yes, you will. Who keeps promises like that? You know who Spider-Man is, and you're not going to tell anybody. You're not going to be like, hey, like your brother. Hey, yo, keep a secret? Yeah. I saw what Spider-Man looks like. Come on, bro. Like, people don't keep secrets like that. Are you nuts? You're telling me every person in that train was noble and is going to keep that a secret? Are you kidding me? That was bad. Like, I would have written around that to have, like, kept the mask on or something. Like, I know why they had his mask off, because they wanted him to emote. They wanted Tobey to, like, show emotion in his face, and he certainly did that. But, dude, like, come on, man. Like, I never liked that. I honestly never liked it. What carries the film, I think, is Doc Ock and the Spider-Man kind of, existential crisis about whether or not he wants to be Spider-Man. That's what carries the movie. And it is a great movie. And if it's your favorite Spider-Man movie, it is probably the best Spider-Man movie, but there are issues here. Like, there are problems in the movie. And I also felt like Octavius, at the end, when he gets subdued, it seemed a little bit too easy. And I do like the fact that he kind of let his dream go for the greater good. He kind of let it go to save the people, but it took this long. I mean, the guy was damn near going to kill Mary Jane and Aunt May at one point. He went from being a complete psychopath to being just a chill guy. I don't know. I feel like I feel like that was a bit too sudden. I mean, I understand the technology, like, controlling because the inhibitor chip was gone. But, like, since when are the machines evil? Is this the Terminator? Like, that whole thing was really weird. Because in the comics, Doc Ock is Doc Ock. He's just a prick. You know what I mean? On the positive side, though, the fight scenes were great. The sequences in the film were great. The movie definitely hit new highs as far as the Spider-Man trilogy goes. And it's a very good-looking movie. The effects look well. They don't seem too dated. It's a very solid story, I feel, and a very worthwhile sequel, because it didn't do the same thing over again. Like, this actually made sense because the first movie is about Spider-Man becoming Spider-Man. The second one is about him trying to stay Spider-Man and whether or not it's worth it. It's kind of like what Zack Snyder was trying to do with Man of Steel going into BVS, where Superman wasn't really sure, at one point, and Batman wasn't sure about him, but this was executed so much better, obviously, because I don't like BVS, but I like this movie. Again, it keeps that lighthearted sort of effect. I really love the scene with Aunt May moving and the kid who idolizes Spider-Man. Like, that was such a heartwarming scene. And then the scene where he has a flashback to Uncle Ben's passing, like how, like, Uncle Ben talking to him, like, that with that, not really a flashback, but like he has that vision of Uncle Ben talking to him. Like, I really love that. Like, the movie was a very good sequel. I won't put it on the level of like Terminator 2 or Empire Strikes Back as far as being like one of the greatest sequels of all time, but it is good. Also, Dylan Baker as Kurt Connors, the Lizard. They were going to do that in one of the Raimi movies, but it never happened. Cliff Robertson's the one that plays Uncle Ben, by the way, and he's, really, really lovable. Same thing with, another scene I love too is with Ursula, how she offers him chocolate cake. Would you like chocolate cake and a glass of milk? That was a beautiful scene. Like, that, like, cause it's like sometimes that hit me, dude, because sometimes in life, man, sometimes in life you're going through a hard time, right? You're having a hard time, whether it be a breakup, whether it be you lost your job, whether it be you're having a bad day, you're sick. And if somebody just offers you what they call chicken soup for the soul, they say, hey, would you like a chocolate cake? Would you like I'm going to make you some ice cream. I'm going to make you a bowl of noodles. Would you like, that's all bad for you, but like, would you like me to make you some dinner? That's nice. That's a nice thing. You want some soup? Like, it's really, really nice. And, it's cool. Like, it means something. Like this movie had a lot of heart. And Spider-Man 1 has a lot of heart, but I think this one really has a lot of heart because every character, except maybe Mary Jane, because she's kind of annoying, every character has a story you can relate to. And even you can relate to her as well to a degree. But Peter and then Harry dealing with his hatred for Spider-Man, but then finding out that Peter is Spider-Man, that confliction, like, that was powerful. Doc Ock losing his wife, like, everybody has lost someone. Like, Peter lost Uncle Ben, Harry lost his dad, Doc Ock lost his wife. There's always a degree of loss and how it affects us. So there's a lot of deep themes in this movie. And, you can take the right path, you can take the wrong path. And, Peter took the right path at one point. And, he gave up being Spider-Man for a while, but then he realized he had to be Spider-Man because things were getting out of control. So it's a good movie, dude. It's a great movie. Avi Arad again produced it. He founded Marvel Studios. I mean, that's the guy. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have Spider-Verse. We wouldn't have the MCU. I mean, this is the guy. You know what I mean? This is the guy that is really helping. Who are making. I mean, him and Kevin Feige, man. Those are the two guys who have made Marvel comic movie adaptations what they are, man. So, Spider-Man 2 is a legendary film without question. It does have its problems, but to me, it's probably the best. People say it's the best superhero movie. It's not. It's really not, but it is the best Spider-Man movie. I personally feel like it's the best Spider-Man film, in my opinion. What do you think? I would love to hear your comments down below. I love this movie so much. And up next is Spider-Man 3, a movie that, I'll be honest, I don't even hate it that much. There's issues, obviously, but I don't really hate it that much. So what does that tell you? Thanks again. Have a nice day. Enjoy your day. And I will talk to you guys in that review.